Hello there. Today we're going to take some time to strategize about what'll be really good in set two, sealed, and draft. If you're like me, you're going to a pre-release for Shadows of the Galaxy, and I just want to look through what's going to be good. So we're going to use Fantasy Flight's website to help us with this. And I've got this filter set to only show us cards from Shadows of the Galaxy, and then also to only show us commons and uncommons. And the reason for that is because we're mostly going to be playing with commons and uncommons. And just to make things easy, I'm going to start with the space arena. And we're only going to look at ships for a minute. And part of the reason behind that is there's usually fewer ships, and you can use the space lane to get yourself an advantage potentially. So I'm just looking through here, and one of the first things that I see is that there are quite a few 4-power ships, but Villain Red does not have one. And Villain Green does not have one, right? So there's one in Villain Blue. There's a pretty decent Heroic Blue. There's a Heroic Green, nothing Villain Blue, or nothing Villain Green, rather. The Desperado Freighter is quite big on the hero side, but nothing on the Villain Red side. Then we've got the Slaver's Freighter and Millennium Falcon. Those are both pretty beefy on the yellow side. All these neutral ships are kind of medium size. So this tells me right away that I think Villain Green and Villain Red are kind of the weakest in space. And specifically, this ship here, the Clan Saxon Gauntlet, has the potential to just take over the game in space. If you draft this card or open it in a sealed pack in a pre-release event, that card could very well win you the game because nothing can kill it in one hit. Right? It's going to get an experience. So it's essentially a 5/6. So your opponent's going to need multiple vehicles to deal with it. So that's pretty strong right there. There are other decent space options, but if I'm looking to shore up a space lane, I'm probably not going to go with a red-green villain deck. The Outlaw Corona is interesting, but even though it might take a while to kill, giving your opponent an extra resource is a pretty big downside. All right, let's look at the ground arena. And here, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to mostly look for bombs, and I'm going to use the filters to just show me units with 6 power or more. And you can see that there are not many. Wow. Let's see if we can grab 5 in there as well. That should add a few more. Okay. I think this is really quite telling. If you can get a Jabba's Rancor out on the ground, it's going to be almost impossible to deal with. Now, yes, it takes a while to get there, but it's just going to eat everything else up on the ground. And in an event like this, there are limited options to deal with that, right? You might have like a Rival's Fall or something like that, Fell the Dragon. But if you're not playing against attack with removal, that's going to be pretty tough to come back from. Blue has almost nothing on the ground. Fenrau is cool, but I don't think you'll be able to consistently get upgrades. So using that strategy is going to be a little tougher. Uh, Red has a few options. Uh, IG-11 and then the uh, Covetous Rivals are both pretty decent. And we're filtering out folks with raid here, but there is one more. So if we include threes in this, if I remember right, there's a 3-power raid 3, the clan challengers. So I'm uh, filtering that back in now, but red has some decent options to hold the ground pretty tightly. I'm gonna filter that 3 back out, and I'm gonna just add rares back in here. Uh, you'll have 6 rares in sealed events. So let's see if that helps a lot. Uh, it does, and it helps red even more, right? Because they pick up the wild Rancor, and this is looking pretty strong for the dark side. So the only light side unit in here is Wrecker. We've got IG-11 that could be played in a light side deck. The Wild Rancor basically costs 8 because I doubt you're running double red in a sealed event. So this is kind of telling to me. I especially in sealed events, I like to have pretty big bombs to end the game with, and red and green are looking pretty strong here. So I'm gonna clear this filter, uh, and we're gonna look at leaders for a minute. And we've got them all here. Let's actually filter out the rare ones. Let's just look at the commons, and we can change this to leader pretty easily, and that should help it load a little faster. So given what we saw, right, that green has the Rancor and red was quite good, I'm liking either Bosk or Hondo for those reasons. I also like Gar Saxon a lot for the ship in space, right? So if I pull the spaceship, maybe I do, let's say I pull the spaceship and a Rancor. I'd probably be looking for either a Gar Saxon or a Hondo, and then using the corresponding base to let me play both of those units. If I pull the spaceship and no Rancor, but some of the beefy red stuff, I think I might be looking at Bosk. And obviously, this is simplifying quite a lot, but it's just to give you some ideas of the fact that if you get the Rancor out, it's going to be pretty tough for your opponent to deal with. And so I think that will be quite helpful. Let's add in the rare leaders now. And we'll take the common ones out. Okay. This might actually change things a little bit. Kira, I think, is amazing if you can build a deck around her. But in this format, she seems a little risky to me. Jabba, kind of the same thing. If I'm playing a Jabba deck, I'm wanting to play more of the cards like Hunter of the Haxion Brood and go into yellow to get extra value from him. In addition to that, I think Jabba will be a tough one to play, just because he's a smaller leader than most of the rest of these. So that one might be tough. Kylo Ren could be good, but again, my strategy in sealed here is to basically try to get to the late game. So Kylo Ren can help us get to the late game, but I'm kind of assuming that we're getting to the late game anyhow, because the decks just won't be efficient enough to end the game early. So I actually kind of like the common leader choices best, given what I've seen. So we'll see what I open. If we don't open any of those big bombs, then uh, no big deal. But let's assume that we're gonna try to use either Gar Saxon, Hondo, or Bosk as our leader. There's a decent chance that we'll open one of those. And if that's what we're running, we're probably staying away from yellow a little bit. So we're going to go back to our filtering here. And instead of using leaders and ground, we're going to look for some traits. One of the traits, I'm sorry, not traits, keywords. One of the keywords I like most is Sentinel. And Sentinel is great because, again, it helps us get to the late game. And I think this is another telling one. There's not a whole lot of Sentinel in the set. One of the ones that we already saw was the Clan Saxon Gauntlet. That combined with the Vigilant Pursuit Craft in space is going to make a really tough space lane to get through. The Super Commando Squad is also amazing. So we have two shielded Sentinels in the set, the Super Commando Squad and the Village Protectors. I think the difference between them is the Village Protectors aren't really going to kill anything. The Super Commando Squad, on the other hand, your opponent might have to trade a couple units into the Super Commando Squad. Now, they only have Sentinel while they're shielded or while they're upgraded, but that's pretty good. So I'm really liking this blue shell at common and uncommon, where we have these Sentinels to help us get into our late game, and then the Clan Saxon Gauntlet just shuts things down. On the ground, too, this Pirate Battle Tank is pretty tough to get through, right? I mean, we looked at 6 power units, and there were only like 5 of them. Nema Outpost Constables is kind of in a similar boat, but again, kind of like the Village Protectors, the Nema Outpost Constables are going to delay an opponent. They're not going to get 2-for-1s, and that's really what we want in a sealed type environment, is 2-for-1s. So I'm really, really liking this blue-green shell, if I can get it. Which is making me lean a little bit more into Hondo and then into Gar Saxon. So let's try another filter here. Because we're going for Gar Saxon or Hondo, we can look for smuggle cards, and we can look for cards with upgrades. So let's start with the easy one. Let's look for the keyword smuggle. And where did my keywords go? Here they are. And who knows, we might not open a Hondo, but I think this is a pretty cool way to kind of visualize the deck a little bit before we actually play it. Now, we're already thinking that we're kind of in this blue-green shell. So we've already talked about our Vigilant Pursuit Craft and the Pirate Battle Tank. Now we're adding in cards like the Privateer Crew. This can be fun because it's a turn 1 play just to get something out on the board. But we can smuggle this for 6 resources, and instead of it being a 5/5, it's actually a 6/6 if we do it with Hondo. And it's actually pretty close to the same thing in a Gar Saxon deck, right? Because it would be upgraded, it would have those experience, it would be a 6/5. So that's great to think of in sealed, but that's an even better one to think of in draft, because if you've got both leaders, you can take a Privateer Crew and not have to commit to leaders yet. Weequay Pirate Gang, another smuggle card that basically ambushes is a 4/4, right? So you smuggle it out as a 4/4 for 5 in a Hondo deck. Let's look at commission. Search for a bounty hunter item or transport card, reveal it and draw it. It's okay. In limited, our decks are pretty thin, so we're going to see a lot of the cards. So far, most of what we're looking at, I think, is either the Vigilant Pursuit Craft. So the Pirate Battle Tank doesn't qualify. It's not a transport. I wonder if that ship is. Let's go back and look. So we're going to take away the smuggle keyword. So we're just looking at all commons and uncommons now in Shadows of the Galaxy. Aha! The Clan Saxon Gauntlet is a transport. So we could actually go looking for that in our Hondo deck. And that, again, becomes a little bit more powerful because I think that this will basically just shut down the field. I'm really, really liking this. Okay, let's look for shielded units. That's not a keyword. Now we're looking for... no, it is a keyword. Sorry. Okay. And the reason I'm looking for this is because of the fact that Gar Saxon combos so nicely with shielded units. So the client becomes a 3/5 that has the bounty. Our Super Commando Squad that we talked about already is great. The Cargo Juggernaut is awesome. Hunter of the Haxion Brood can't get there. This Hutt's Henchman can become a 4/4 shielded. That's pretty good in a Gar Saxon deck at common. So I think this is starting to kind of take hold for me. And again, I might not open up what I'm looking for, but I think that this is very helpful. If I can pull a Rancor or that Clan Saxon Gauntlet, I'm probably going to play those units. And then I'll probably look for one of those bigger dark side leaders to pair with it. So I hope this was helpful for you. Let's say you want to take a different path and you don't want to go super late game like I do. You could use this website to search for what you like to play. So it's really quite good, and I think that you should take advantage of it and use it. Thanks for joining, and take care.